Chloe, this story is seriously messed up. You have to hear this. Picture this. 1994, Seoul. The entire country of Korea is living in a real-life horror movie because of this gang called the Jijeonpa. And to get the vibe, you have to know who they were. These guys weren't just thugs, they were a literal death cult formed out of a deluded hatred for the rich. For murder practice, they kidnapped a random woman and did unspeakable things. They even dragged a member who tried to leave back to the mountains and used him as a practice dummy for murder. They practiced cannibalism to abandon their humanity and had a bunker with a jail and a freaking incinerator for bodies. That's the level of nightmare fuel we're talking about. The whole country was terrified. And right at that moment, a man casually strolls into a Seoul police station. The detectives are all overworked, exhausted from the Jijeonpa case. The whole office smells like stale coffee and cigarettes. This guy walks up to a desk, and a detective asks, without even looking up, "What is it?" The man just smirks and says, "I'm here to turn myself in for serial murder." The entire office went silent. But then he adds the most insane request. "Oh, and put me in the same jail cell as the Jijeonpa guys." Like, what? He wanted to prove he was a bigger, badder monster than them. Is he for real? At first, everyone thought he was just some delusional crank. But then the man, Oh Seon-woo, pulls out this old notebook and slaps it on the desk, and the mood just freezes. It was his 22-page murder journal. Shaking my head. And it's not like a diary, Chloe. It was cold, like a ledger. September 11th. Abducted one female, Lee Soo-jin, alias. September 14th. Stabbed another Park So-young, alias, 5 times in the abdomen. Deceased. It was so detached, it made my skin crawl. The cops are frantically flipping through it, and one line chilled them to the bone. September 12th. One female. Death not confirmed. This was Lee Soo-jin, the bride-to-be who had been reported missing. It was a single shred of hope that she might still be alive. But to understand how twisted this Oh Seon-woo guy was, you have to hear what he did before all this. Posing as a taxi driver, he kidnapped a woman named Choi Mi-ran, alias, a karaoke bar owner. She was just taking a taxi home after a long day. But then she noticed the taxi turning onto a dark mountain road. She yelled, "Driver, this is the wrong way!" And he supposedly looked at her in the rearview mirror, smiled coldly, and said, "No, we're going the right way, to your grave." Disgusted. And he showed her the grave he literally dug in advance. He tied her up, put a plastic bag over her head, and threw her in the hole, burying her alive. As she was suffocating, thinking it was the end, a miracle happened. She fought so hard that the clothesline he used came loose. In all, can you even imagine, Chloe, clawing your way out of your own grave in the dark? She ran like hell and reported it to the police. That's why he was already a wanted man. But this psycho just keeps going, even with his face all over the news. He kidnaps his next victim, the bride-to-be, Lee Soo-jin. And this is where the story reveals its most brutal truth. The cops rushed to the mountain where he said he'd left her, hoping to find her alive. But he didn't just leave her. He hid nearby. He watched her struggle for her life, watched that tiny spark of hope ignite when she finally got a hand free. And at that exact moment, he walked back out, looked her right in her hopeful eyes, and then he smiled and killed her with a shovel. He didn't just murder her, he murdered her hope first. It's pure evil. So why did this wannabe movie villain turn himself in? The reason is the most pathetic thing you'll ever hear. During his last murder, the victim fought back and he got a small cut on his hand. And because he got his first ever boo-boo during a crime, he suddenly lost his nerve to kill? Laughing. A paper cut and his murder spree is over? Pathetic. And the real kicker? He was watching the news and got pissed that they only reported 3 of his 6 crimes. His ego was bruised that his legacy was being downplayed. So he walked into the police station to set the record straight and prove he was a bigger, badder monster than the Jijeonpa. No cap. And in the end, he stood in court and, acting like his own prosecutor, demanded the death penalty for himself. Just posturing to the very end. And he got his wish. He was executed on the same day, in the same place, as the Jijeonpa members he so desperately wanted to be like. The pathetic end for a man who dreamed of being the world's greatest killer.